All right, let's try to finish this up. All right. So far, when we've talked about arrays, like back in Chapter 6, I think it was, we talked about arrays of primitive objects, an array of integers, an array of floats or doubles, an array of booleans, an array of chars, an array of strings. But you can also have an array of objects. All right. We're going to get into this. Like I said, tomorrow what we'll do is we will build a very simple employee class. All right, and those employees will have just a few different properties and a few different methods, but it'll show you how we do different things. Okay, and you create an array of objects just like you create any other array, except instead of saying int bracket bracket, the name of the array equals new int, you say the object type bracket bracket, the name equals new, the object type, and a size. All right, so it's totally legit to do that. You can go through an array of objects and look at their values just like you do with an array of ints or an array of doubles or an array of whatever. Now, it's harder when you want to use the sort method and you want to use the binary search method. Okay? When we use sort, we just sorted a group of numbers, correct? Not a big thing. You can run sort, you can sort strings. So if we had a list of names and we had them all so they were all uppercase or all lowercase, we could sort a list of strings. Just as easy. But you can't do that with just array.sort when you're using objects because they're more complex. Arrays have to be of the same type. So you have to do more work if you want to be able to sort them. You have to write more code. All right? So the author says in here, and this is what we're going to talk about in the next chapter, so this won't be till next week. The author says that we're going to end up using what's called an abstract method. Don't worry about what that is right now. All right? For now, we'll also create an interface. Well, what the author mentions in here is what an interface is. I want to quickly try to tell you what this is. Don't worry about memorizing it or anything else. All right. If you looked at me, if you said let's just say I'm Jeff, all right, and I am. So my mother is Audrey, my father was Dick or Richards. And the idea was I inherited from both of them. Does that make sense? All right, I was not adopted, even though my kids are adopted, I was not. So supposedly I got chromosomes or whatever you say, genetics from each one of them. You can't do that in a programming language. You can't have two parents. In this language, you can only have one parent. All right? So like I'd have to either do this or I'd have to do this. You cannot do that where you have multiple parents in this language. You can't, C# doesn't support what's called multiple inheritance. Neither does Java. So both languages that you use here do not support multiple inheritance. There's another programming language called C++ that does support multiple inheritance. All right. Why do we teach C# and Java? Because that's what the employers in St. Louis County have asked us to teach. That's why you're getting that. All right. All right. So any child can have only one parent, but a child can have as many interfaces as she or he needs. So a child can have exactly one parent, and a child can have 0, 1, or more interfaces. What's an interface? It's like a class that's not a class. Well, that's a stupid thing to say, but it's what it is. All right? And there's a special interface that you can use that's called I-comparable. Some call it I-comparable. But it'll allow you to do, among other things, it will allow you to do sorting with objects. And they explain in the book on the bottom of 399 and then on 400 and 401 and 402 how you would use this. All right? So as it says, if you want to use this, you must include a single colon and the interface name I-comparable after the class name. You're going to see this in a minute. You must write a method that contains this header. You're going to see that in a minute. All right? But what it does is it compares two things. We're used to this. If I compare these two things, the first one that I'm listing, 77, is less than 86. So if I ran a compare to function on it, it would return -1. Meaning the first one is less than the second one. If I did this, then it would return 0, meaning they're equal to one another. And if I did this, it would return +1 because the first one is greater than the second one. That's what they're talking about with this negative, 0, and positive. Usually it's -1, usually it's +1. But it's a negative number or a positive number when you make the comparison. All right? Again, I'm trying to be low touch with this because this is pretty heavy stuff. But the author does a good job on 398, 399, 400, 401, and 402 going over this. All right? All right. The last you do it is on page 403. If you would all please, regardless of what you're doing, stop for a second. Look up on the screen here. I sent you an email during the break that looks like this. And it's got the test reviews for chapters 9 and 10. It also has the first two programs we went over, the student programs that we just went over, and this last one that's at the end of the chapter. It's the good news, bad news. The good news is 5 out of 6 work. The bad news is the one that doesn't work is this one. Because I just tried writing it during the break and it doesn't like what's in the book. All right? But what they explain in the book, and let me close that, but so you've got all this stuff. So for the last example, which I think is this one, let me check. Yep. For some reason, it doesn't like this. See how it says here, if it's greater than this, return 1. Otherwise, if it's less, it says return, red val here equals -1. Everybody see that? It doesn't like that -1. I don't know why, but it doesn't like the negative sign. All right? Maybe it's because I copied it. That is what it is. Okay. So you're going to have to go into the one I sent you and remove that. I copied it from the book. So I copied it as one of those, they call it a large dash, all right, as opposed to a regular minus sign. So you're going to have to change that. So let's see now if we save it and run it, if it works. Please enter a student ID number, 123. Please enter the last name, Scott. Grateful, it's got to be a 4.0, all right. And it doesn't like something. I guess I was supposed to be putting 8 of them in there and it didn't like it. All right. That's the display, sorted list. I don't know if something is hosed or what, but if you look up on the screen here, what should have happened is after we put all that in, and again, I might have missed something, I don't know. It's my problem for writing it real late like this. We should have been able to put in 8 students, all right, in any order, and notice what it sorted them by, ID number. See that? All right. And mine doesn't. If I can get it fixed, I'll send you the fixed copy. All right. So that is on pages 403, 404, and 405. 2 last things, and then, thank God, we're done with this chapter. All right? First is, starting on the bottom of page 405. I mentioned this to you before. Okay? There are destructors. A destructor gets called when basically when the system determines an object isn't going to be used anymore. The destructor is designed to give that memory back to the system that the object was using. You never call a destructor yourself like you never call a constructor yourself. You don't call it directly. It's called for you by the system. It looks just like a constructor, but see this? Called the tilde, the little squiggly sign right there. you put that in there. So if you take a look in the book on page 406, you look up on the screen here, notice in the gray, that's the destructor. Now that would be stupid to write that to just say the object was destroyed, but the author is just showing you. Why would you use a destructor? You would use a destructor for house cleaning types of things. So if the object is destroyed and the program is done, if you have a database open, you might close the database. The last chapter we go through in the book talks about files. You might close a file. Those are housekeeping actions. That's what you typically do. You never have to write a destructor. If you don't write one gets written for you that looks just like this, except it doesn't have a write line in it. So it would be tilde employee, paren, open curly brace, close curly brace. That's it. All right. And the last thing, starting on page 407, understanding GUI application objects. The good news is I've already talked to you about this. All right. They're coming in here and they're saying, it says this shows a new GUI application that the programmer started simply by dragging a button onto a form. All right. And then what it's showing you is the button on the form is going to look kind of like this. This is in that special designer file. All right. So again, let me go back. I'll use this one. Doesn't matter. I'm going to stop the run and I'm going to go back to the form designer file, which we don't have because this is not a GUI. I don't think. All right. So I come in here, I start up a brand new project, and I say that I want it to be a Windows form application, and I drag a button out on the form. I should have just brought the one back up where I did before, but that's fine. All right, so it's going to create the new form. I come in here. I grab a button. I throw it on the form. You've seen that before. All right. What you may or may not have noticed, though, is if you look here, look on the screen, see where it says Form Designer? Somewhere in this Form Designer file, the new button was created. There it is. And it's telling you that under the form class, you created from the button class a new button that you called button 1. So what I'm saying is, even though this was all new stuff, you've been using classes and objects since day 1 in here. All right? Whether you realized it or not. That is it for the chapter. If you would please, in your book, turn up to page 414. Page 414. We are going to go over the review questions on 414, 415, 416, and 417. All right? Number 1. An object is A or an. Number 1 is C. Instantiation. It is an instantiation of a class. Number 1 is C. Number 2. A class header or class definition can contain all of the following except. The answer to number 2 is D. Number 3. Most fields in a class are created with the, again, it is D, private. So number 1 is C, number 2 is D, number 3 is D. Number 4. Most methods are created with a public modifier. Number 5. When you have a class file, you never have static methods. You only have static methods in your main. All right? And hopefully, the other thing that the author did by combining those, remember what I told you before? that I thought it was stupid to put the main in the same file, because the author had static stuff and non-static stuff together. By me separating it and having main in one file and the class in another file, the class file had no static methods in it, which that's the way I was taught to do it. Number 6, to allocate memory, you use C, the new operator. Number 7, the answer is B. A is illegal because you cannot have a return type like that. Oh, I want to see something. Maybe I might have gotten that backwards. I may have misread the question, so let me see. I still think that's right. All right. Yeah, it's for constructor header. Yeah, that is right. It couldn't be A because constructors cannot return a value. All right, so the answer to number 7 is B. So the first page is C, D, D, A, D, C, B. All right, number 8, going on to the next page. The answer to 8, as far as I'm concerned, is either one of these is okay, so it's C. Number 8 is C. Number 9, I said would be B, public and non-static. 9 is B, public and non-static. All right, number 10. Now, I didn't show you this. You're going to have to go back and look at this in the book itself, but believe it or not, the answer, I think, to number 10 is A. You can't have them have the same name. This can be letter grade with a big L, but it can't be like that. So I think 10 is A. I hate the question. Number 11. This reference is A, implicitly passed to non-static methods. 11 is A. Number 12, you can explicitly refer to it. So 12 is B. So the second page, I've got C, B, A, B. Turning to the next page. A class's default instructor, C, does both of those. It sets numeric values to 0, and it is parameterless. 14. B. You're overloading, and you already have one with an int, so A would be the same as what you already have, so it's got to be B. 15. I think the answer is both B and C, so the answer is actually D, 2 of these. 15 is D, 2 of these, because B and C are both okay. 16, the answer is D, as in dog. You cannot explicitly call a destructor. All right, and 17, I believe, I don't like the way the question is worded again, but I have D. 5, 5. So for this page, they are C, B, D, D, D is what I have. Finally, numbers 18 through 20. 18, I believe at least, is D. 19 is D. 20 I wasn't sure of, but I know for sure that B is correct. All right, so I just said B. Again, if there's any questions like that ever, I won't give them to you anyway. All right, as far as your homework, the ones I want you to do are on pages 418 and 419. They are 5, 6, and 9. Those three. 5, 6, and 9 on pages 418 and 419. All right? Tomorrow when you come in here, and I'll try to not take much more than an hour, we'll see how it goes. We will write a payroll class as a class, no pun intended, and if I have time to do one of these, I'll do them for tomorrow, and we'll do that also. Make sense? And the rest of the period tomorrow will be lab. Monday will go just like today did. We'll have a boring lecture for a long time, and then we will go over the other stuff. Tomorrow, too, we'll do the test review. I sent you the blank test reviews in that email. Okay, so you've got all the code from the you-do-its, and you've got the 2 test reviews. All right? But now you've got about an hour and 20 minutes or so. All right? Remember, by tomorrow, I want the homework done for chapters 6, 7, and 8. The rest of the period is yours. If you want to take a break, have a smoke, whatever, that's up to you.